How are we going, everyone? Going to check out my seedlings here in the little hothouse that I've got growing. Now today's probably around 15 degrees, which is not warm in Victoria. It is winter, we're right in the middle of winter. It looks like it's going to rain, and tomorrow, well today it's actually going to rain. It's meant to rain, but it hasn't come in, but the winds are blowing it through. It should be here in the next few minutes. Before we do that, have a look at this. 15 degrees outside. I should have an outdoor temperature, but this is our soil temperature here. 30 degrees, 30.8. I've got it set at 24. It gets quite warm, so if you've got a hothouse, and I'm recapping on this because a lot of people are still emailing me asking me, do I take the lid off, don't I take the lid off, what do I do? Well, you need to inspect it for starters, and if it's sitting about 30 degrees, you can take the lid off like this and let it sit in this little environment. If you've only got the one hothouse, leave the lid on. You can adjust the lid as well by opening the ventilation on it. That way you'll cool it down a lot quicker. Now, I didn't do that. I've come out to have a look, and that's why I'm doing it now. I left it, actually, let me pull these out. Let's have a look at this. What have we got here? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What have we got? 4, 5, 6. It's just coming up now, 7, 8, 9, 10. About 11 seedlings that haven't germinated out of the 32. Okay, so these ones are doing slow. They're not taking off yet. Let's hope they do. But we're going to hydrate that. But we've also got the tray underneath. Is it holding water? No, it's not. It's dry underneath. You can see these ones here are drying out because that's where the sun's been shining on them the most. This one, for some reason, because we've got no seeds growing, it's not absorbing anything, staying hydrated. Well, we're just going to hydrate these little ones to make sure they don't dry out with the heat, like that. And put the lid on with the ventilation open on it, like that, so it can breathe a little bit, because it's inside another hothouse, and these are fine. These look like they're already growing. Wow, that's warm in there. We'll turn the vents on these ones too. There we go. This is the raised garden bed. Well, let me recap on what's happened here. If you're wondering what's going on in this garden bed, it's called Krishna. You know, most of you who follow me know we've got a beautiful horse who roams free on the property. Well, he's mustered up the courage to come inside this garden and taken a chomp out of all these here, the endives. He's taken them to the ground, literally. So, and I've harvested off these about 3 or 4 times. Well, not 3 or 4, 2 or 3 times, I'd say. This will be the 4th time. You can see they're already sprouting up. So this is what I love about multiple picking. And we've got our spring onions there, and we've got some, or the garlic's over there. Luckily, he doesn't like garlic. Now, the broad beans here in this bed, I haven't tried them before. Do you remember this garden bed? We got the soil in, it was pretty average. Well, the leafy greens done well, the basil did well, and what I've got over here, what you're seeing here is perpetual spinach. This is the alternative to your typical spinach that you get annually. You put in the ground and it goes to seed. Then you got to rip it out after the one harvest. This one's got a huge taproot on it, so, and it's perpetual, meaning it's going to be there forever and a day. I've planted 4. This one's taken forever to grow. Look, actually 5, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That one, they're struggling, and they've taken off beautifully. If you remember a while ago, I planted some climbing beans here, and that's the remnants of it. Here, we got really a bad crop. This wall didn't even cover. Not even half of it got covered. And that was because of the bad soil I got delivered. Anyway, it's been about 6 months, 9 months. I'm hoping the soil's in a better state, and I'm giving the broad beans a chance, and so far, I'm pretty happy with them. I mean, folks, it's really cold. I planted, I'm not too early, but average time around March, it was April, May, June, 2 months for these to come up. It tells you that the soil's pretty average here. They've taken a while to grow. They're just starting to kick on. Now, they like a good drained soil. Well, is this good drainage soil? Let's have a look at it. There's a spot here that broad bean didn't take off. It's got a lot of stuff in here that I don't like. Let's have a look at the texture here. Honestly, you know what it looks like? Every time I look at this soil, I haven't dug it over since I planted all this stuff, but every time I look at it, I feel like, yeah, I've got, you know, building material. It looks like I've got brick sand in here. Clay particles. Now, we like clay in our soil, but this stuff here, it's all over the bloody thing. Look at it, here, look. It's everywhere in the soil, all these little pieces. I don't know what sort of effect it's having on the soil, but if I go by what happened to my crop the last summer, it's pretty bad. But look, everything's okay at the moment. You know, the garlic's doing okay. I can't see any problems. The leafy greens are great, and the broad beans, well, they seem to have taken off, even though they're a little bit slow. And these beans here, the broad beans, I planted much later than the other ones you just seen there. They're still a lot smaller, but they're also going to get a bit of black grit around them, because last year we had a bumper crop out of these. Now, one thing about the broad beans, and I did do it last time, and look, I'll recap on it again as I get older and taller, that is, you break the heads on them, and that forces them to come into flower and set the beans on them, the broad beans, the pods. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but for now, what you need to do is black grit everything. And by the way, folks, I am talking about Victoria at the moment. Our climate is winter. We're in obviously the second month of winter, so it's going to be the coldest month of the year. Technically, it's meant to be, although we've had a 17-degree day, 15 today, 12 degrees coming up tomorrow. Now, for other parts of Australia and other parts of the world, obviously you've got a different cycle in season. So we're going into winter, you're going into summer. You'll be harvesting broad beans, and I'm so envious of you. I'd love some. And we can't get black grit out to you guys out there on the other side of the world, but maybe one day we will. If you are in the northern parts of Victoria or even the warmer parts of Australia, no doubt your broad beans will probably be up to here already, depending on your microclimate. As you know, my little garden here, it's winter 90% of the time and blistering hot the other 10, which cooks everything. In actual fact, I should mention this, and I haven't spoken about lawns before. For those of you who love your lawn, be it all buffalo, cooch, kikuyu, or even fescue, you got to get this stuff into your lawn. It's a little bit early for the lawn, but if you get yourself a lot of this stuff, have it there on the side, because the phosphate is what you need to get back into your lawn. With the magnesium and calcium, you're just going to have the best lawn ever. I don't put it down on mine, because I've got 20 acres of lawn. I don't need any more lawn. But for those who are really meticulous about keeping a nice soft green or having a nice little putting green, get some black grit into it, and I'll tell you, you'll never go back to anything else. But for your plants as well, I find that the calcium in the black grit is what helps these things produce twice as many flowers and set fruit. So it's about a tablespoon around each little plant, like this. It's a non-soluble soil amendment fertilizer. So what does that mean? It means it doesn't melt in the water. So if I fill this up with water, it'll just sit there like sand would at the beach. So it'll absorb a little bit of moisture, but it will not dissolve. It works only when it becomes in direct contact with soil that's excessively acidic. So if you've been using synthetic fertilizers most of your gardening life, or even soil fertilizers like manures and chicken manures that are quite acidic, and you've got a buildup of acid in your soil, so the pH, if you're doing a reading on it, is sitting around the 5 or 4 or even greater. That's ridiculous if it is, but nevertheless, if that's acidic, you need to change that, because what happens with acidity in the soil, excess nitrogen causes the soil to lock up, meaning that all the other nutrients that otherwise would be available become unavailable. So your plants don't grow and get all the benefits, all those macronutrients that are in the soil, because they're locked up by the acid. That's the easiest way I can explain it. So you need to reduce the acidity level, and the best way is with black grit. If you're going to try and do something with your garden bed and you want something to work long term, it's the black grit that you need to put into it. And it helps with the calcium, because calcium is the secret to strong, healthy plants. And no horses in your garden as well. So that's another part about it all, folks. So don't judge it looking a little bit ratty here. It's because our chooks have been getting out, which we've since fixed, and our horse has been munching away and getting a wonderful feed. So he's a very healthy horse. And now with the black grit, you can guarantee yourself your plants aren't being poisoned with chemicals, because that's what you need to do when you feed your garden. So black grit is available online, vasilisgarden.com, and your local garden centres. And us as an online store have got a major special running. So if you're watching this as it's just been uploaded, you could switch over to 3AW Radio to listen to me and Darren talking about gardening. Give us a call with your gardening problems and ideas. We'd love to hear from you. And this weekend, while I'm on radio, we've got up to 70% off on our black grit range. Combos, singles, and impacts as well. So check it all out, vasilisgarden.com. And look, you can feed anything and everything in your garden. Everything will benefit from it, nothing will suffer, and your garden will give you a bumper crop in return. Check it all out, vasilisgarden.com. From me, Vasili, Maresi.